Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Curette Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2003 movie titled Too Fast, Too Furious. This is a action movie that runs for an hour and 47 minutes long. It is directed by John Singleton and produced by Neil Montz. The script was written by Michael Brandt, Gary Scott Thompson, and Derek Haas. The music was done by David Arnold, the cinematography by Matthew Leonetti, and it was edited by Bruce Cannon and Dallas Pewitt. And it stars Paul Walker, Tyrese Gibson, Eva Mendes, Cole Hauser, Ludacris, and Devon Aoki. Without the assistance of fugitive on the run Dominic Toretto, Vin Diesel, who was AWOL in this movie, Brian O'Connor, played by Paul Walker, is still being hunted down by the FBI, takes his exodus from Los Angeles, and travels around the country to compete in drag races while making new friends along the way, and as well as collecting a substantial amount of money. It isn't before long that the cops find his car, and now he has to travel by foot until a lady drops him off at a car loan, and he uses his money to purchase a blue car and paints it silver. O'Connor decides to settle in Miami, where he eventually reunites with ex-con Roman Pierce, played by Tyrese Gibson, as they join forces with the FBI to track down a shady dealer named Carter Verone. But they only agree to do this to the FBI on account that they have their criminal records expunged. They are also joined by a secret agent played by Monica Fuentes, that's Eva Mendes, to bring this sleazy miscreant and his band of goons to justice. What did I think of this movie? Well, unlike a lot of sequels where they don't measure up to the first installments, Too Fast, Too Furious succeeds in equaling up to the first installment, and maybe even two times better. Even though it's kind of sad that Vin Diesel was not in this movie, but still, I think the movie succeeds in the fact that it had a better structured movie in terms of plot, whereas maybe the Fast and the Furious set the tone for what you would expect in this movie. Too Fast, Too Furious kind of stands on its own legs and doesn't depend too much on the Fast and the Furious by making it feel more inferior to the first installment. This movie, like the first film, is of course loaded with the usual formulaic mixed bag of cliches, like the token slimy gangster and his dim-witted gang of goons. We have corrupt cops, by-the-book FBI agents, and their determined sidekick and whatnot. But the people who see this movie aren't here to see any character-driven or which character is more developed than the other. Hell no. We've come to see exciting drag races, cars crashing into each other, fight scenes, over-the-top humor. We're not looking at Shakespeare or any life-changing Hallmark Channel type bullshit. No, we're here to see epic fights and most of all, cool cars and hot girls. Okay, with Vin Diesel out of the picture, Paul Walker takes the central role as Brian O'Connor, a former LAPD on the run, and is now relocating himself in Miami to capture a sleazy dealer in exchange for his criminal charges to be eradicated. And he actually does succeed on his own, without playing second fiddle to Vin Diesel. The only thing about his role was that there was at times when his dialogue was forced, but in a rather funny way. Not in like a laughably stupid way, but more like a dry humor kind of way. And why does he sound funny? It's because it seems like he's a bit too old to be talking the way he does. His dialogue kind of makes him sound like an adolescent who's been living in the basements of an LA public school and has kind of picked up on their lingo. He seems to talk in like adolescent tough guy talk, like the way maybe a 16-year-old school bully or a class clown would act. Roman Pierce, played by Tyrese Gibson, is O'Connor's sidekick, and though he is no Dominic Toretto, he's still a capable replacement and has just as much equal charisma to pull it off. Now, to all those naysayers who say that everything here is surreal, even the speed of the cars is all that, you know what I say to them? Get a life. You're not expecting to expect realism. This movie is no different than the land of make-believe. It doesn't exist. The world they live in is all surreal. It's the threshold where badass dudes hang out, where drag racing is more of a pastime and not an illegality, where the ladies let it loose and enjoy every moment of it. Sure, the dialogue is juvenile, and sometimes the way the characters act can be more adolescent than young adult. But the utopia has our heroes who constantly bicker, like it's almost like as if you would see two adolescents arguing over whose pizza slice is larger. In the world where they live in, there are no real good guys, and the badder you are, the greater odds of survival are in your favor. In action films, this has been a common trend since Jason Statham starred in The Transporter, as he played a hero who was still a lackey to the underworld. These days, being the cookie-cutter hero is obsolete. It's the fight between bad guys and even worse guys. O'Connor and Pierce are almost like a modern-day version of Robin Hood and Little John, as they confiscate drug money, but they take it before the cops grab their hands on the dough. It makes you wonder if the producers know who's coming to see this film, or maybe not. There are sometimes when it feels like they're glorifying the audience watching it, giving it the impression that the people who came to see this movie probably are no dumber than a bag of rocks. But once the smoke is cleared, when it comes down to it, the real stars is not the performances by the actors. Hell no. In fact, the dialogue was actually at times forceful, contrived, and like I said, juvenile. The real stars in this movie are the cars. They grind, they release steam, and most of all they make a lot of noise, so much so that it's not too late to purchase some earplugs. The opening drag race will likely have your heart beating faster than 1,000 bees in a hive. And Vin Diesel was not the only one who departed in this movie, as Rob Cohen also took the Exodus from the Fast and the Furious and left it in the hands of John Singleton, who took over the director's chair, which is quite surprising to me, because if you recall, back in 1991, John Singleton directed probably one of the most powerful dramas in the 90s. I'm talking, this is the same John Singleton who directed Boys in the Hood, one of the most powerful dramas back in 1991. I think it was actually nominated for Best Picture. And this guy looked like, with Boys in the Hood, that he was on his way to superstardom, and people were expecting that he was going to end up directing movies kind of this caliber. So then you ask yourself, What happened? He's now being demoted to direct a movie that seems to reflect on the cars usurping the bravado of the performers, where the dialogue sounds like the reason why you think America is being dumbed down. And the action, and sure, this is all fun and all, but I thought this guy, Mr. Singleton, was going to be a more serious director. I mean, he brought us Boys in the Hood, and now he's lowering himself to Too Fast, Too Furious. I mean, I know it's all in fun and all, but I thought this guy really had serious commitment aspirations. So then I asked myself, what happened? And I'm not knocking Singleton down. This is a good movie, like I said. But it's ions away from being up there with Boys in the Hood. I mean, Boys in the Hood is like up here. Too Fast, Too Furious is more like right here. So I guess under a more competent director should come to no fluke that this film is actually 5 times better than the first installment. And make no mistake about it, John Singleton is a far more superior director than Rob Cohen. And I give praise to Mr. Singleton for putting out a more plot-structured story than The Fast and the Furious. And the challenges faced are taken to a more serious approach, even though it's still a very dumb movie. But it's a fun kind of dumb. You know, as long as you keep me entertained, I'm satisfied. We know that the target audience was mostly intended for the teen male audiences between the ages of 15 to 20 years old. And maybe their girlfriends may have came along. Hey, they knew what was coming to them when they joined them in this atmosphere. And quite frankly, you know, full-grown adults like me can never outgrow these kind of movies. Fast cars, exciting action, and hot babes. I mean, what more do you want? You know? And let's see, if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I'll have to give it a 7. And maybe that's not too generous on my part, but look, Too Fast, Too Furious is not the best one of the installments. I mean, as for Tokyo Drift, well, forget it. I didn't like Tokyo Drift at all. Fast and Furious had its moments, but it just didn't really sink very well to me. But Fast 5, which I will be reviewing coming soon, that one really rocked. No pun intended, Dwayne, sorry. Well, I guess that ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. And you can leave a comment. And remember, be kind, be courteous. And I will be back again with another review. So until then, this is Eric Corrupt Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.